This is Mark Codo, aka Codoman, and you are listening to Codovision, the TV podcast show where you feel the TV power through audio. For this episode, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite TV shows that I grew up watching when I was little. Now this is going to be from Disney Channel, and it's going to be an animated show. Now this show came out in 2007. Now this was when I was still in elementary school, and that show would be Phineas and Ferb. Now I'm going to talk about an episode from Phineas and Ferb, and that would be the very first episode titled Rollercoaster. But let's be honest, this show, Phineas and Ferb, obviously one of the best Disney Channel shows that I have ever seen growing up. Growing up in the 2000s, I watched a lot of Disney Channel content, although Disney Channel wasn't really the first network I grew up watching. I did grow up watching some PBS Kids shows, and then of course transitioned to Disney Channel, and then of course I even transitioned to Nickelodeon as well. But Disney Channel has always become one of the more popular TV show networks at the time, and of course there were many other Disney Channel shows that came out, and Phineas and Ferb is one of them. And like I said, I was in elementary school at the time when Phineas and Ferb came out, so why not talk? So why not talk about it? But I'm going to talk about an episode for Phineas and Ferb, which is obviously Roller Coaster. So Roller Coaster is the first episode of the American animated musical comedy television series Phineas and Ferb, and it was originally broadcasted on Disney Channel in the United States on August 17th of 2007 as a preview of the series. The episode follows series protagonists Phineas and Ferb building an extremely large roller coaster starting in their backyard and going through the city. And the show itself, the show was created by Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Marsh, to which the two also wrote the episode and direct as well. Now, of course, the roller coaster episode was used as a pitch and preview for the series to Disney, and they recorded a set of storyboard reels which Povenmire voiced over and sent them overseas, and the preview of the episode totaled a combined 10.8 million viewers. And then, of course, with the popularity of that episode, it was actually remade into a half-hour musical episode titled Roller Coaster the Musical. So that right there tells you how popular this episode got when it was first released. Now, ironically, when it broadcasted on the Disney Channel back in 2007, it wasn't really the episode that Disney went. It wasn't really the episode Disney Channel went with. So, just to give a little backstory, Phineas and Ferb. It was released in the summer of 2007, August 17th, 2007. So I was about 8 years old when this show came out, and knowing the fact that Roller Coaster was the first episode, but unfortunately it was aired as a preview. So the episode originally aired as a preview, as I mentioned, although it was premiered after the Disney Channel original movie High School Musical 2 on August 17th of 2007 with a rating of TVY7. Somehow Disney Channel wanted to start off the series in a special way, though they did not use Roller Coaster. Instead, they chose the episode Flop Stars and aired it in a worldwide premiere. So technically, the title of the episode Flop Stars, as I mentioned, is an episode from Phineas and Ferb. Flop Stars is the third broadcast episode of Phineas and Ferb, not the first episode. The first episode was obviously Roller Coaster. I don't know the reason why they went with that episode. Although to be fair though, Disney Channel did say they want to start off the series in a special way. So I guess you could say they wanted to start off on a high note because Flop Stars is basically more musical too because of the one of the more popular songs in Phineas and Ferb. It's basically "Gitchy Gitchy Goo" means that I love you, which is basically one of the main songs for Phineas and Ferb. Obviously, you know what it is. Phineas and the Ferb Tones playing this song "Gitchy Gitchy Goo" means that I love you. Yep, that song. If you know what I'm saying. I really like that episode. That was a good episode. But come on, you can't beat the roller coaster episode either. Because let's be honest, Roller Coaster is a fun episode, and it really gave you an idea. And it really gave you an idea of what Phineas and Ferb really want to do, what they want to do over the summer, and of course, try something new instead of like sitting under a tree all summer with their pet platypus, doing nothing, watching TV. And of course, that's how the episode opens up for Roller Coaster. And part of this episode, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite scenes from this episode. So I'm going to dive deep into the plot summary of this. So Phineas and his stepbrother Ferb are sitting lazily under a big tree in their backyard when they decide to construct a large roller coaster with their mother Linda at the grocery store. Their sister Candace wants to catch them in the action and of course bust them. So when Candace saw the roller coaster that Phineas and Ferb built, she decides to go to the store to tell her mom that the boys built the roller coaster. And although she is keen on neglecting it, while their neighbor and best friend Isabella goes up to Phineas and asks, "What you doing?" So Phineas and Ferb began working on the coaster. Meanwhile, Phineas and Ferb's pet platypus, Perry, performs his act as a secret agent, codenamed Agent P, being informed by his short-tempered boss, Major Francis Monogram, that his arch nemesis, an evil but silly scientist named Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz, has bought 80% of the tri-state area's tin foil. Perry darts off to investigate what Doofenshmirtz is doing, with their roller coaster actually finished. So Phineas and Ferb unveil it to the neighborhood children, including Isabella. The children ride the roller coaster, which twists around the city, and of course Doofenshmirtz, meanwhile, reveals that he is using the tinfoil to cover the eastern seaboard, then using a magnet to pull it, thereby reversing the Earth's rotation with the magnetism magnifier. To which Perry fights him, but Doofenshmirtz manages to get the magnet activated. However, Doofenshmirtz soon learns that his plan is flawed because the magnet has only taken the tinfoil of the eastern seaboard, forming it into a 2-ton giant ball. Seeing that the ball is heading towards them, Doofenshmirtz and Perry attempt to separate the magnet from his machine to stop it. Perry attempts to solve the problem by hooking the magnet to a helicopter, causing the magnet to go with it. This attempt is unsuccessful, and Doofenshmirtz, at the top of his building, are sent throwing away by the tinfoil ball. The magnet attracts the magnetism magnifier, which picks up the entire roller coaster, preventing Linda from seeing it. Plus, Perry cuts the cable, making the roller coaster drop to the ground, then jumps into the roller coaster while placing his hat onto Isabella to avoid blowing his cover. So Phineas looks behind him and utters, "Oh, there you are, Perry!" The roller coaster reaches the broken end of the track and starts flying across the world and into outer space. Candace, who had unsuccessfully been trying to get her mother to see the roller coaster, makes her mother drive home to see that Phineas and Ferb are not there. However, the roller coaster lands back on Earth and into the tree in their backyard. With the roller coaster stuck in the tree, the Phineas and Ferb fall out, leaving Linda able to see her children, but not the roller coaster, causing Candace to stutter. Like Candace is like, as the other children fall out of the tree. The episode ends with Isabella having a friendly conversation with the stepbrothers before returning home as the roller coaster explodes, causing Candace to call for Linda again, but Linda tells Candace to give it a rest. And then the giant tinfoil ball is rolling around town. And that's the end of the episode, though. That's the plot summary of this whole episode. I know what you all are thinking. Codoman, there's a lot of scenes in that is obviously one of your favorites. Yes, I would consider the whole episode as a I would consider the whole episode to be my favorite scene, but come on, that's so many scenes to talk about. But I just want to give out my 2 cents on what my favorite scenes from this episode. So anyway, to start off, first of all, y'all know this is a pilot episode, right? So you gotta like introduce your character, you gotta like introduce your main characters, the setting, the idea of the show, what's gonna happen next, that sort of thing. So I really like how this show opens up, right? I love how the show opens up. It opens up in a suburban neighborhood. It's called Danville, although I don't know which Danville it is. It was probably based off of other Danville cities. There is a Danville in Illinois, but I'm pretty sure there's other Danville areas across the United States. I like how Phineas and his brother Ferb sitting in the backyard under the tree with their pet platypus Perry. Now, Phineas and Ferb, they're being voiced by Vincent Martella and Thomas Sangster, while Perry the platypus is being voiced by D. Bradley Baker. They're all sitting under the tree. Phineas talks to his brother Ferb, asking, "So, Ferb, what do you want to do today?" Ferb shrugs his shoulders. He was like, "I don't know." Ferb does not talk, so it's almost like if you're it's almost like Jay and Silent Bob, but a G-rated version of that. Get it? Because Jay is more of the big mouth kind of guy, while Silent Bob is basically the quiet person in the room. Phineas is just bored at this point because he doesn't know what he wants to do until he decides to build a roller coaster. Although he asks, "What about Perry? What does he want to do?" But Perry makes this platypus noise from Deep Rye Baker. I guess is a sign saying that Perry doesn't know what he wants to do. But fortunately, Phineas is like, "Well, he is a platypus. They don't do much. I, for one, am starting to get bored." I like how Phineas starts off like that. Like, he feels bored. He doesn't want to spend his entire summer feeling bored, right? And one thing that popped into his mind was a roller coaster. And we got a cutaway joke where after Phineas says, "And I want a good roller coaster, not that one that we rode at this county fair." And it cuts away to Phineas and Ferb riding that one roller coaster at the county fair, and it just ends abruptly after going down that one small hill, and the guy was like, "Exit to the left, please." And oh my goodness, I don't know what type of roller coaster was that, but that one sucked. That one literally sucked Phineas's life out of his whole day, and he's like, "Man, that roller coaster really sucked." But he got the idea. I was like, "Wait a minute, that's it. I know what we're gonna do today. We're gonna build a roller coaster." Like, he tells that to Ferb, and Ferb literally agrees to that. And Phineas and Ferb get to work right away making this huge roller coaster. Like, literally, first couple of minutes of the episode, you have Phineas and Ferb sitting under a tree feeling bored until Phineas comes up with the idea. Like, comes up with the idea to build a roller coaster. I like that part. That's what I really liked about the open. That's one of my favorite scenes for this. Another favorite of mine is when, of course, while they were building the roller coaster, Isabella comes on by to meet up with Phineas, because it turns out that Isabella has a crush on Phineas, but Phineas doesn't realize that. But Phineas likes Isabella too, but he doesn't really understand that Isabella is in love with Phineas, if you know what I'm saying. And Isabella's being voiced by Allison Stoner. The first time she walks into the backyard, you see she has pink heart-shaped eye pupils. Like, no, you know right away that Isabella is in love with Phineas. She says this cute quote, "What you doing?" I'm telling you, that is so cute. But anyway, she even talks to Ferb a little bit, but of course Ferb doesn't really talk as much. Like, Isabella's like, "Hey, Ferb." Ferb waves at her, and Isabella asks Phineas, "Does your brother really say a lot?" But Phineas is like, "Oh, Ferb, he's more made of action," meaning like he doesn't talk, but he's more action than words, if you know what I'm saying. Action speaks louder than words. Now, to me, this is gonna be a crazy opinion, but even though Ferb doesn't talk, he's basically the quiet kid in the room, and whenever he does a lot of action stuff, especially when it comes to like building a lot of inventions, including Phineas himself, I consider Ferb to be a badass. I see him as the ultimate badass at this point. Because he doesn't talk, but he really gets to work on a lot of inventions, and it's just crazy too, especially when he has this nail gun that fires nails just to put in the nails on the roller coaster, and it comes out very fast. That really shows you how much action Ferb has, and that's why I consider him to be, well, not only the quiet kid in the room, but also a badass, if you know what I'm saying. There's even more episodes where Ferb shows off his action style. Believe me. So anyway, moving forward, another favorite scene of mine. Now this is still on both Phineas and Ferb, but it's also when the two introduce the roller coaster to all the kids in the neighborhood. All the kids come to the backyard to see what was underneath the tarp. So, but it turns out it turns out that Phineas reveals that it's a roller coaster. The way how he delivers it, he's saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, may I present to you the coolest coaster ever!" He pulls down the tarp and he reveals an entire roller coaster to everybody in the neighborhood, even to the point where the roller coaster, like the first hill, that roller coaster goes way up high in the sky that not even a pigeon can fly through it, because we see a pigeon hit the top of the road, hit part of the roller coaster, and it just falls down. And I like this next part that Phineas says. He asks everybody, "So who wants to ride it?" And then everybody raises their hands. And once that's out of the way, he tries to tell everybody, "Okay, so to fasten your seatbelts, you gotta do this, you gotta do that." But he accidentally drops it, and he's like, "Whatever, folks. Well, enjoy the ride." Like once they all get up to the top of the top of the track, it's so it's funny because the last quote that Phineas asks, he says, "You all signed waivers, right?" Oh my goodness, Phineas, what are you talking about? Like he asked everybody on the roller coaster if they all signed the waivers. If you know what waivers are, you probably know what I'm saying, because in case if anybody gets injured or much worse, yeah, you know what I'm saying about those waivers. This roller coaster goes by super fast, and it's not just from the backyard, it goes all around the city of Danville. Like, you get loop-de-loops, even a moment that goes, ah! Even Phineas said it too, like he tells Ferb, "Hey Ferb, here's the ah! Here's the ah!" And then everybody does it too, and once it hits the ah! It's just so funny. There are even moments where everybody was covered with snakes and mud. Even Phineas told everybody, "Relax, guys. The snakes are made of rubber." They even stopped at a car wash for a little bit, and the roller coaster just keeps on going. Like everybody's having a blast on that roller coaster. It's just so amazing. Even when Phineas and Ferb were building that, actual adult engineers asking Phineas this famous quote from the show, "Aren't you a little young to be a roller coaster engineer?" Phineas is like, yes, I am." And then the engineer was like, "Well, it's good to see young people taking advantage of engineering," and among many other things too. But that's not one of the famous quotes I hear. It's like, "Aren't you a little young enough to do this, do that, do all sorts of stuff?" It's a memorable quote. It was actually foreshadowed a little bit at the store between Candace and Linda, Candace's mom. Like Linda, who's being voiced by Caroline Rhea, and Ashley Tisdale voices Candace. By the way, speaking of High School Musical, Ashley Tisdale played Sharpay in High School Musical, and she voiced Candace Flynn in Phineas and Ferb. Candace is trying to tell Linda, the mother, that Phineas and Ferb are building a roller coaster, and the two need to be busted. But Linda was like, "Candace, isn't Phineas a little young to be a roller coaster engineer?" And that leads up to that next scene where the engineer was asking Phineas, "Aren't you a little young to be building a roller coaster?" It comes in full circle very well. That's a moment that I really like too. Two scenes of that I like. Wow, nice way to segue into that. But anyway, another moment that I really like from this show is Perry the Platypus and Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Like literally, Dr. Doofenshmirtz is obviously one of the most silliest villains in the show, and obviously one of the best characters out there. Like in this episode, like we don't get much of who Dr. Doofenshmirtz is until later episodes, but in this pilot episode, it's just, Dr. Doofenshmirtz is being this evil scientist who's making these inventions to rule the tri-state area and quite possibly the world. That whole cliche of this villain trying to take over the world. If you know what I'm saying. Dr. Doofenshmirtz has an invention that uses a magnet. It's like a magnifier or of some sort called the magnetism magnifier, and it's supposed to pull hold the entire eastern seaboard, not just the tin foil, but all the metal, if you know what I'm saying. Kind of like Magneto from X-Men, except Magneto did it better. But unfortunately, Dr. Doofenshmirtz screws it up because his magnets can only get the tinfoil parts, not the entire eastern seaboard of buildings, if you know what I'm saying. And Doofenshmirtz is like, well, that didn't work. I like how Doofenshmirtz even introduces himself to Perry, saying, Perry the Platypus. Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz. I'm about to take all the metal with this magnetism magnifier from the eastern seaboard. But of course, Perry the Platypus, obviously, he fights Dr. Doofenshmirtz to stop his invention. But of course, obviously, he succeeds by using the magnifier to grab onto the helicopter. Of course, Perry uses the magnifier to attach to the roller coaster in Danville just to lift it up. Unfortunately, he does save Dr. Doofenshmirtz, but of course the tinfoil ball runs him over, and Doofenshmirtz just rolls along with the tinfoil ball. Don't worry, he's alive at the end, but it's just crazy too. You have a huge 2-ton tinfoil ball rolling into Dr. Doofenshmirtz and his entire building, and oh my goodness, what is up with that? Like, Doofenshmirtz is alive, thank goodness, but it's kind of crazy how he's being rolled along with this tinfoil ball, and Doofenshmirtz tells Barry, "Curse you, Barry the Platypus!" Like, oh my goodness. But seeing Barry and Dr. Doofenshmirtz go at it against each other, it's another moment. It's a scene that I really enjoy. But anyway, I like how the rest of this episode is basically Candace trying to tell her mom that Phineas and Ferb built this roller coaster, but the mom, Linda, doesn't believe it, even to the point when Candace drags her outside to see the roller coaster. Like, the roller coaster was there, but unfortunately, what Candace and the mom don't know is that that the roller coaster is being lifted up in the air with this magnifier and the helicopter, because the helicopter and the magnifier was on it, and plus Perry used his grappling hook to attach it as well. But what is also funny is that, like, once the mom went outside, she's like, "Okay, what am I seeing?" And Candace doesn't see the roller coaster, and she's like, "No, that's impossible! It was right there. It was huge." And then the two go home. While everybody else was on the roller coaster. The rest of the ride, it turns out to be crazy because this leads into my next favorite moments when the roller coaster ends. Is that when Phineas and Ferb are still on the roller coaster? Like, the track ends, like, it literally ends, and the roller coaster keeps on going. It keeps on moving. The roller coaster itself, there's no track. The track is there's a dead end. There is no track. The roller coaster goes flying in the air through a construction site. It lands on an airplane that flies them all the way to New York City, and the roller coaster lands on top of the Statue of Liberty, which launches them like a catapult all the way to a forest preserve, where it lands on a tree right in front of a Slushy Burger restaurant, where we see another character. His name is Jeremy Johnson, and he's being voiced by Mitchell Musso, and he says, "Welcome to Slushy Burger, may I take your order?" And Phineas is like, "Anybody want fries?" Going off topic for a sec, it is hinted at the beginning of the episode that Candace is friends with Jeremy while he was talking to her friend Stacy on the phone. She name drops Jeremy because of the fact that Jeremy works at Mr. Slushy Burger. Yeah, we get to see Jeremy having his own cameo, but unfortunately, after Phineas asks everybody, "Does anybody want fries with their Slushy Burger?" Like, the tree launches the roller coaster all the way to Paris, France. Like, it lands on top of the Eiffel Tower and goes to another restaurant that sells croissants, and the guy's like, "Croissants?" And Phineas is like, "Anybody want a croissant?" But the Eiffel Tower launches the roller coaster up into space, where a satellite just floats on by. And this next part, Phineas tells Ferb, and I really like this part too. Like, Phineas tells Ferb, "If that satellite crashes into the backyard, Candace is in charge." Because earlier in the episode, Candace tells her mom, Linda, that she wants to be in charge, and Linda's like, "Are you sure about that?" But Candace tells her mom, what if a satellite crashes into the backyard? And the mom's like, if that happens, you're in charge. And that's where that quote comes from. Like, Phineas sees the satellites floating in space, and he's like, if that satellite crashes in the backyard, Candace is in charge. And what's next is the roller coaster crash coursing back to Earth like a rocket ship landing back to Earth. It lands back into the backyard like a rocket ship. And what's also funny too is that this next part, it's so ridiculous. There's a shot where we get to see a Photoshop of a real life skyline city. It's a Photoshop of the actual skyline in live action. It's actual real life live action footage of Phineas and Ferb landing in the city, and you can definitely tell that it's live action and animation for that split second being photoshopped in. It is so crazy. I actually kind of laugh out of that. And in this next part from Phineas, he says, "We should have charged more." Oh yeah, you should have charged more. You should have built more track. Oh no crap, Phineas. You should have built more track on that roller coaster. If you know what I'm saying. Oh my goodness. But anyway, I like how it ends with Phineas and Ferb laying back in the backyard where everything's fine, and Candace just stutters because she realized that Phineas and Ferb are back in the backyard, safe and sound, and the mom sees that Phineas and Ferb are safe and sound, and Candace is like, because for a split second, the mom wasn't able to get in on time just to see the chaos that was going on. Noticing that Phineas and Ferb are basically the good boys, while Kansas is just basically, the tattletale, if you know what I'm saying. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But I do like how this episode ends with everybody complimenting Phineas and Ferb on that amazing roller coaster. And of course, this episode ends with some good trivia. Here's one thing about this. There is a quote in this, and this comes from Ferb. Now, we hear Ferb's voice for the first time. Thomas Sangster voices Ferb. And he says this about Perry the platypus. Like, he says that Perry's the only mammal that can lay eggs. And Phineas is like, maybe he'll lay an egg. Well, here's a little trivia for you. Ferb states that platypuses are the only mammals to lay eggs. There are, in fact, 5 mammal species that lay eggs, platypuses, and 4 species of echidna, spiny anteaters, that can lay eggs. And that's a little bit of a trivia for you. Now, of course, Isabella leaves, and she compliments Phineas and Ferb on this amazing roller coaster, and she asks, what are you going to do tomorrow? Phineas doesn't know yet, but he tells Ferb that we should make a list. There's a whole summer ahead of us. Like, when he said that quote, we should make a list. Like, you know right away where this series is going to go, right? It's not just a roller coaster. They're going to build other things. Other rides, other attractions, other stuff too. Oh my goodness. Like you hear that quote, you know what's gonna happen. Like, first time watching this, it got you hyped. This is how you build up a series. Like, you close off on the idea, you close off with something more. You want to see more of this, right? What more do you want to see from Phineas and Ferb? Like, when you hear that quote from Phineas saying, "We should make a list," he knows right away what he wants to do for the rest of summer. And of course, with the series being Phineas and Ferb, and that whole plot of the series where they want to build a lot of a lot of projects, whether it's from rides, attractions, and even all the other things. Like, you know right away what Phineas wants to do for the rest of summer, and I really love how that episode ends. It doesn't end there. It ends with with the tree blowing up from the top, and Candace is like, and then Linda was like, "Give it a rest, Candace." And then we hear the background music playing in the back, a guitar riff background music playing in the background, ending with the tin ball rolling through Danville. And that's just, I like that. I really like that how it ends. And those are some of my favorite scenes from this episode. But I know there's other scenes too, but come on, this is pretty cool. Anyway, now before I wrap up this episode, I want to give in a little bit of my own thoughts. I enjoyed this episode. I love this episode. It's not my favorite episode, but it is an episode I really enjoyed. Like, it's an episode to have fun with, something to remember on. Like, it's in this. Looking back on this, it's so nostalgic. As an 8-year-old kid watching this during my elementary school days, it is a fun show to watch. I remember this show so much. It is fantastic. It's a fantastic show to watch, especially with this pilot episode. Again, I wish they went with this episode after High School Musical 2 instead of the Flop Stars episode, but it didn't bother me as much. But if you want to present it in a special way, you can. But with the roller coaster episode, it was great. It was a good way to give the audience a preview of the show of what Phineas and Ferb is gonna be like, of what Phineas and Ferb is gonna be like. But anyway, I mean, I gotta give credit to Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Marsh. They really knocked it out of the ballpark with this one. And what's also crazy too is that it took 16 years to get Phineas and Ferb greenlit, and this show went this show was in development hell for 16 years. Those two waited 16 years to get the show off the ground and pitched to a studio. Like, the show was turned down by Cartoon Network and Fox Kids, including Nickelodeon as well. And of course, ever since since the studios turned it down, Povenmire and Swampy Marsh parted ways for a little while to work on other shows. Swampy Marsh was in the UK working on other TV shows, while Dan Povenmire was working on shows for SpongeBob SquarePants and Family Guy. And of course, once the show was picked up, Dan Povenmire was able to get a hold of Jeff Swampy Marsh to ask him to come back on the project, and Swampy Marsh was like, yeah, sure. So what they did, so that's amazing too. Like, it took 16 years to get the show off the ground, and it paid off so well. And even during the whole process of it, like Dan Povenmire admitted this whole plot of the episode. Like, it's not just the roller coaster episode, but the episodes that came after roller coaster. Like, one of the following Phineas and Ferb inventions is not a like he says the one following Phineas and Ferb inventions is not a plot. It's not actually a plot, but instead the setting, with the actual plot being Candace, Perry, and Dr. Doofenshmirtz's story. So the story is that the characters are changed by what happens to them. Nothing ever changes. Nothing ever changes the boys. They never learn anything. There's never any obstacles they have to overcome. Everything works out. Everything just works out for them. So basically, what Dan Povenmire is saying is that the plot is basically Candace trying to bust the boys from building these inventions, while you have Perry and Dr. Doofenshmirtz go after it. So you got a lot of plot lines going on. You have Candace trying to bust the boys, and of course Perry, the platypus, trying to stop Dr. Doofenshmirtz from building crazy inventions as well. So you have two different plot lines going on, while you have Phineas and Ferb building crazy inventions as a actual setting. So basically, what we got from the pilot episode is the roller coaster was actually the setting, while the actual plot was Candace trying to bust Phineas and Ferb from building a roller coaster, with Perry the platypus trying to stop Doofenshmirtz from using that magnifier to magnetize the eastern seaboard. That's pretty crazy, and the way how Dan Povenmire he written it in a spectacular fashion, and I give him credit to that. The same with Jeff Swampy Marsh too. Obviously enough, the hand-drawn animation holds up so well. I really loved it. Especially the humor. Dan Povenmire, who worked on Family Guy, sought to create a less raunchy show that will make similar use of comic timing, including meta humor, humorous blank stares, and wordplay, and of course breaking the fourth wall. And that's what he did with Phineas and Ferb. Like, it's basically Family Guy, but at the same time less raunchy and more friendlier than what Family Guy. Because Family Guy is more, if you know what, for those who have seen Family Guy, you know Seth MacFarlane, obviously adult animated TV shows. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're more raunchy. Like, Family Guy is more raunchier than what Phineas and Ferb is. Like, Phineas and Ferb is raunchy, but less raunchy than Family Guy. But also, Dan Povenmire. But here's the thing. Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Marsh also put their voice acting to their test. But Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Marsh even voice acted too. Dan Povenmire voiced Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz, while Jeff Swampy March voices Major Monogram, Perry the Platypus's boss, or Agent P's boss, I should say. And and uh, and and of course, actually, what's very cool about Jeff Swampy March, he puts in a British accent for Major Monogram. He says, Agent P, Dr. Doofenshmirtz is up to no good. You need to stop him. And Agent P just goes after Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Like, yeah. Oh man, that is great. That is amazing. That is literally amazing too. But anyway, that's basically it. That's basically my covering of the roller coaster episode of Phineas and Ferb. Now, granted, there is another episode that ties in with the first episode of Phineas and Ferb, which is basically Candace loses her head because in other areas, like the roller coaster episode is basically 11 minutes, but unfortunately it does segue into another episode where Phineas and Ferb do something special for Candace, and the title of the episode is called Candace Loses Her Head. But the thing is, like, this is an episodic show, right? Phineas and Ferb is an episodic show, and yes, they do have extended episodes for specials too, but they do like episodic shows where it's just basically one storyline, and then of course once that storyline's over, they go into the next storyline, and that's basically like two different episodes crammed into one. So you got an A episode and a B episode crammed into one half-hour episode. You know what I'm saying? But I'm only covering the roller coaster episode because obviously why not? It is a fun episode to talk about. But anyway, that is a wrap on this episode. But anyway, to all of you who are listening, what did you think of the roller coaster episode for Phineas and Ferb? Did you like that episode? Have you seen this episode? Did you not like this episode? I would love to hear your thoughts. But anyway, that's it. That is a wrap on this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Mark Codo, where I'll be uploading more episodes of Codovision in the nearby future. And also, don't forget to check this out on Spotify and Spotify for podcasters as well. But anyway, that's a wrap on this episode. So thank you all for tuning in to Codovision. I am Mark Codo, aka Codoman, your Codovision host. Stay positive and keep on streaming.